Welcome to the Hard Truth Podcast. This is Jeremy Fouts, and today we are going to be talking a little bit about, again, athletes. And I know last week I got a lot of good feedback from parents that listened and had their kids listen to the podcast. And I know you parents that are looking for more motivational and personal development leadership style, we're going to be throwing in a little bit of everything. But I will tell you that, my passion and the phase I'm at in my life is really trying to get these parents, and I'm talking to you. If you don't have kids that's playing ball, then I'm sure you have some friends that do. But, making sure we are understanding what we need to do to develop not just athletes to be good on the field, but teaching them how to be a good human, how to teach them how to be a champion in the classroom, in the community, and all of those things. But today, I'm going to be talking about raising elite athletes from the kitchen to the field. And this is something I'm still in process of. As all of you know, I've got a boy that's going into a senior year that plays baseball, and then a sophomore that plays three sports: lacrosse, football, and baseball. But today I want to kind of just talk to you a few things. This is going to be a little bit of a quicker podcast, but I want to first set the tone by saying this. Everyone wants the glory, but few are willing to live the grind. And this is something that, as I see that I'm working with athletes, they're always like, well, how come this kid's getting recruited and I'm not getting recruited? How come this? How come that? And we've got to always talk to them and say, hey, let's don't focus on others. Let's focus on self. See, you don't build elite athletes on game day. You build them in the quiet times when not anyone is looking. You're building them in the kitchen, in the hotel rooms when you're traveling with them, on the car rides to the ball games. All of these things are kind of like the process of building an elite athlete and building, more importantly, a good human, whether you have a son or a daughter. So I want to talk to you about some of the things that, I'm not, the person that is what I would call the perfect example. I've made a lot of mistakes with my athletes, but I learn from these mistakes, and I've got other good mentors in my life that has already went through this phase that I'm in. And these are the experiences that I want to try to teach you, for you don't have to make those same mistakes. So part one. Let's go. What up? The home is the first locker room. When I'm working with an elite athlete, and I'm trying to let them understand how to work a meal plan, their workout schedules and different things, I always talk to them also at the end of the voice memo when I send them, and then we have these conversations as well of, yes, I want you to be a good athlete, yes, I want you to be a good teammate, but you also got to be a good teammate in the home. If you see the trash needs to be taken out, you take out the trash. Your mom is not your chef to do the meal plans. You take the grocery list, you go with, your mom, your dad, you buy the groceries, you help meal prep, all of these things. And I know these athletes are not going to be listening to this podcast. I'm mainly talking to you parents, but I want to explain to you kind of your role as a parent and why your home environment is more important than any training facility. And I want to start by saying it starts with a morning routine with your athlete. I've been working with a lot of parents lately, and it's summertime, and they're like, well, my athlete's not being able to get his food in. I'm like, yeah, he's not getting his food in because he has a no morning routine. He's playing video games till midnight, getting up at 10:30 or 11, and then starting his day when it's almost halfway through. So you've got to sit down with your athlete and say, look, I believe in sleep. You need a lot of sleep. I'm going to talk about that here in a few minutes. I always talk about that. But I will tell you, you've got to help them structure a schedule, of going to bed at 10 o'clock at night, waking up early, 7:30 or 8 in the summertime, getting your breakfast in, getting your snack in, hitting your lunch meal, hitting your snack, hitting your dinner. You've got to help them with that morning routine. That morning, motivation is not really a thing. It's all starts with discipline not hype. Are we going to have the discipline to have a morning routine, get up, get our workouts in, get our breakfast in, all of those things, which preferably I'm big on this, a breakfast first, then a morning, then a lift, but understanding the importance of all of these things. And the home is that first locker room. You are the head coach, mom, dad, you are the one that's helping structure all of the things that's so important to turn them into an elite athlete. The hidden advantage here of a structure is consistency breeds confidence. If I've got an athlete that I'm working with and he's getting into a routine, he's getting up early, he's eating his breakfast, he's hitting his lifts, he's hitting his snack. All of a sudden, I teach this to my athletes. Self leadership is where it starts. I want my athletes to be leaders, but if they can't lead self, they're not going to lead teammates. So it's very important for these young athletes to know that hidden advantage of consistency breeds confidence. Your strongest athletes, guys, have parents who model what they preach. One of my question and answers last week is, a lot of the parents ask, how do I get my son or daughter to do this? Well, they've got to look at you, right? They've got to look at you and say, mom and dad's training for a marathon. Mom and dad's training for, a weightlifting competition. Mom and dad's training for, whatever it is. They've got to see you. And if you look at this, it's an example of not just your health, but in your food, your faith, your follow through. I mean, if you look at all of the MLB players that go through the system and you start looking at the amount of attention that they get, whether it be recruited from college or going straight into the draft, it's 9 times out of 10, they have an environment, locker room, that mom and dad's already experienced that baseball, at a high level or basketball at a high level. And so those coaches that are recruiting them or drafting them, they know that the locker room environment was done right. There's so much that they don't have to teach that kid. And you say, well, Jeremy, I've never played MLB, but I've got a baseball player. We've got to learn that locker room environment that starts at the home. I've never played college basketball, but I've got a boy that's going to be a college or a girl I'm trying to get to college. We've got to learn those environments at home and teach those kids by us being an example and for us modeling everything and teaching them what they need to do to breed that confidence, for they believe in their self, that they can go to the next level. Part 2 is nutrition is training. I've talked to adults all the time, and I've talked to athletes too. These adults that go to the gym 5 days a week and they wonder why their body composition don't change. It's because their eating habits don't change. And then I talk to these athletes that they'll tell me they work out 2-3 times a day, and they wonder why they're not getting stronger and they're not putting on weight. And I'm going to tell you right now, 80% of performance is built in the kitchen, not the weight room. Now, do I believe in the weight room? Absolutely. The weight room does something for me mentally, and that's where I get all my stress out, and I love it. And I advise that for any adult, any athlete wanting to go to the next level, the weight room is crucial. But you can work out all you want as an adult or as an athlete, but if you don't have the nutrition dialed in, you will not get what you're looking for out of the weight room. That's just a given. I emphasized a lot more in detail on this last podcast that I won't get into. The 80% of performance is built in the kitchen, not the weight room. So why do teen athletes need fuel, not fads, guys? It's focus on real food, hydration, and recovery. That's the big reason. Your athletes are not going to get the performance that they're looking for without real food, hydration, and recovery. Now, some of the things that I've talked about a lot on my social media platforms, the Instagram and the TikTok channel, is as a parent, you've got to learn, when you're traveling. I get this over and over. Well, we're traveling for the summer. We travel for the summer. You've got to learn easy hotel and travel hacks for parents. You've got to prep a lot of your meals. I was working with the dad yesterday that they're about to be on the road for a week. And he's like, man, what do we do? He's almost in panic. And I'm like, well, let's look at your meals. So we built the meals. We're going to cook a lot of chicken. We're going to take and put that in one dish. Then we're going to take our pasta in another dish. And that way our food is not touching each other for 7 days at a time. And then we're going to build it the night before, whether we have an ice chest with cold packs in it, or if we have, the mini refriges in our hotel room. And one thing I've learned in traveling over the years is if you don't have enough fridge space, if you ask a hotel and tell them for medical reasons, my kids need to have more fridge space, they will make that happen. 9 times out of 10, they will make that happen. But you've got to learn these things that you can't look at nutrition as, well, we're traveling, so therefore we're going to eat at Chick-fil-A every day. No, this is for purpose of what's best for our body. We've got to do what it takes for healthy snacks, healthy hydration, healthy proteins, getting rid of the seed oils all the time, all those different things. So how poor nutrition can cost you as an athlete, it can cost you a lot. Because recruiters notice fatigue, they notice a body that's recovered, they notice body composition. And so I'm telling you right now, we call it in the recruiting world, as I've talked to a lot of college coaches, we call it the eye test. Is your boy, is your daughter, do they look like an athlete? That's what I'm continuously working on with my two boys. But nutrition is training, guys. 80% of performance is built in the kitchen, not the weight room. Part 3 is sleep is the secret weapon. When I was younger, I'd always, be hard headed and I'd say, well, I'm gonna die or I'll sleep when I die. I mean, I was ignorant onto the fact of the power of sleep. And now at 49-year old, I get pretty much 7, 8 hours of sleep every night. It's a priority to me. I mean, my hormone levels are better, my cognitive is better. I mean, everything my everything I accomplish is at a higher scale when I get 7, 8 hours of sleep at night. For the young adults, it's even more crucial. Sleep is when the strength is built, muscles repair, and the brain rests. I mean, the bedtime routines is something that's big that I go over all the time with my boys. My oldest boy this past year was the first time we allowed him to take his phone to his room. Before that, we made him check it in every night in the kitchen at 10 o'clock. And you say, well, Jeremy, that's mean, whatever. Well, he had just now has got to the point where he can be responsible enough to go upstairs, put it on airplane mode, set his alarm, and do that. And I wanted him to experience that before he goes to college. And it's very good for him to learn those habits. But my youngest son still checks in his phone. And there will be a time, probably this year, where we're going to give him that freedom to see how he manages it. But you've got to understand no less than 8 hours, more preferably 9 hours of sleep is the secret weapon to your kids. And when we travel, we get a plan together. They've got a 10 o'clock game, what time they need to go to bed the night before. We set that time frame to get that 8 to 9 hours of sleep. We make sure we get up to eat the breakfast, get a light lift in, get another snack or lunch, depending on what time the game is. But those things, parents, is crucial. And I'm telling you, the sleep is the secret weapon. Part 4, parents, you're the culture coach. You're not just the chauffeur. And I've thought that many a times. You're the example. Kids don't need more hype. They need more humility, discipline, and support. And I can guarantee you that's the facts. I've played to just be in the hype row, and I've learned that, you know what, let's teach them the discipline. Let's give them support. Let them make some mistakes. Let's say not in a yelling, situation, but let's talk to them later. What did we do wrong here? What are some things we could have did better? What was your carb intake before the game if your energy levels was low? Did you drink your hydrate? Did we need some grapes to chew on? in the dugout? Talking to them all about those things. They go 3 for 3. That's awesome. Let's stay humble. Let's work hard. Let's continue this good hitting streak going. Do we have the discipline to go hit off the tee in the backyard when we're in a slump, or if we're even 3 for 3? But helping them and set that culture right, because you are the head coach of your of your athletes. The trap of doing too much for them, guys. I talk to parents about this over and over. You need to support your athletes. It's very important, but you can't do too much for them. You've got to let them, especially when they get older, and start teaching them as young as you can. Have your uniform laid out the night before? What do you want for your breakfast? What do you want for your snacks? Have you looked at your workouts before on game day that it's a little light workout? You can't do everything for them. My boys do their own laundry. They don't come home and finish playing a baseball game, wake up the next morning and say, "Where's my laundry?" They're responsible. They get home, they wash their clothes, they dry their clothes, they lay them out the night before. You cannot do too much for your athletes. You got to teach them to start owning that responsibility. Last, in part 4, you have to create those training environments at home. The meal preps, the schedule boards, accountability time. We meet on a Sunday afternoon as a family. We talk about our workout schedule. We talk about our foods we're going to meal prep for. We talk about all of these things, and you say, well, man, that's a little extreme. I'm hopefully preparing them for college sports. I want them to get to college. I was talking to a college coach the other day, and he said, more importantly, what we look for, yes, we want talented boys and girls. Yes, we want, athletes that are physical, the things that I talk about, fast, strong, all of those things. But we always ask ourselves, is this athlete mature enough to come into a college setting, take care of their priorities from a nutrition standpoint, take care of their workouts, take care of their academics, not get in trouble? These are things we're teaching them at home. We're creating those training environments. Your athlete is in a training environment, and you're the culture coach. Part 5 is mental and spiritual toughness. Now, a lot of you know that, one of the things that I have loved for years as I built quite a few companies is mental strength and leadership. That's something that I'm big on. I feel like less talented people with more mental strength and understanding spiritual toughness will get them further than the person that's just talented. And I encourage all of you parents to inspire your athletes to have a faith mindset, an identity impact long after athletic success. And teach them that when athletes know who they are off the field, they don't get shaken if they go 0 for 3. They don't go shaken if they don't score any points in a basketball team. So you've got to make sure your athlete, they know what the real important thing is. And that is that faith side and another identity other than just sports. And simple ways to lead your family in faith, guys, is what you need to practice. Even if you're not perfect, none of us are perfect, but teaching them those really important things and leading your family through faith and grit, and teaching them, that we're going to have our prayer time. We're going to reflect. We're going to visualize, just like what you trained. We're going to do these things. It's important, because I'm telling you that mental toughness and that spiritual toughness will get your athlete further than what his talent truly is, or her talent, either one. Part 6, what separates the recruited from the rest of the pack? Recruiters aren't just watching stats. I was talking to a dad today, and he's like, man, my son's not having as good a summer as I wanted. And he read off the stats, and I'm like, hey, man, we got to focus on, number one, this athlete, his metrics are off the charts. So, These colleges, what seems weird to me, but it's just the facts. They look at the metrics, how fast he can hit the ball off the tee, what's his throw down, pull down from the outfield, what is his 60 time, all those things that we talk about that's going to help your student athlete from a metric standpoint, which is nutrition, training, sleep, hydration, all of these things. But they're also watching the attitude, they're watching the recovery practices that you have in place. They're watching your effort. They're watching your body language. All of these things, these recruiters are looking. They're looking at your discipline outside of sports and how you show up in sports. They're looking at, are you early into the game? Are you getting your stretching done? Are you doing the things you need to do on the mental side of the game? All these things they're watching. And then I'm telling you, many athletes with talent get passed up because there's a lack of structure, lack of effort, and a lack of mental toughness. And so I'm telling you, this is the facts. This is something I'm going through deep in my stage of life that I'm in right now with my oldest son. And these are things that I've prepared myself for, some things I've missed on, absolutely. But that mental toughness and teaching that discipline on and off the field is something that's going to help your son or your daughter, get attention and let those college recruiters say, man, this is someone that would really bring value to my program. That's what they're looking for. In closing here, I'll tell you guys what I encourage you to do from a mom and dad's perspective is build a legacy blueprint. Every week set your meal plans. My boys pick out their meals. And I said this last week on the podcast. I don't know why, but no matter how good of a cook I am or Candace is, when they pick out their own meals, they like them better. So have those weekly meetings where you talk to them about what meals we're going to cook. Let them be a part of that process. Let them be a part of, cleaning the kitchen, meal prepping, all of those things. Teach them, starting every day with the hydrate, ending the day with the hydrate. How many calories are we going to consume today? How much of protein, how much carbs, how much fats, enforce a phone, at 10 p.m. We're getting off our phones. We're not doing any more blue screen time at this point. A weekly family check-in. I talked to my boys on Wednesday. Where are we at on hitting our goals this week? Are we going to win 7 days out of this week on all of our calories and our macros and our workouts? Are we going to at least win 5 out of 7? But having those weekly check-ins, giving them a high five when they're hitting their calories and macros, giving them a high five when they're cleaning their plate and not just looking at it for an hour and a half. All of these things are very, very important. And I talk to them about post-workout, protein, plus sleep, minus the TikTok. All of these different things is what I really know without a shadow of a doubt will turn your son or daughter not just into an elite athlete, but an elite human. And that's more important of what we're trying to accomplish as parents of athletes. So, guys, thank y'all for joining me on this podcast. I hope that you understand the importance of raising elite athletes from the kitchen to the field. And one thing I'll leave you with is these memories that you are making is going to be memories that will stick with you for a lifetime. And the things that you teach your kids in that first most important locker room, which is called home, is going to not only make magical memories, but it's also going to just give you this joy of knowing that when your son or daughter leaves your home, which is a very short time for some of us, then they're going to be that responsible adult. They're going to be that one that has the discipline, that loves and cares for other kids and parents around them. They're going to be the ones that make a difference in the marketplace, because truly, more than playing in the pros, we all want that, but more than that, That's the more obtainable goal of what we need to focus on is how can we prepare our son or our daughter to be an elite human. That's the most important thing. So thank you guys for joining me on the Hard Truth podcast. I would appreciate if you give us a review, leave us a comment on Spotify or whatever platform that you listen to, Amazon Music, all of them, YouTube. Go follow us on there, social media, and we are going to continue to do our best to give you things that you need to do to be able to you be the best example as a parent, number one. And number two, how to create that right culture in the most important locker room called the home. Thank you guys. Have a great day.